Yes, you've got it rough, but please stop running. You know I've had enough, so thanks for nothing. And when you went away, you should have told me where you were going. You got a lot of love, but I still love you. I know that I was right the day I met you. I'm never gonna leave or forget you. You carry yourself like the princess in a castle. For better or worse, you're worth the hassle.
Good evening and welcome to IITW Radio. It is what's the date today? The 3rd. Holy crap, it's coming by fast. And we got a good show lined up for you guys tonight. We have Colonel Joe Wells in the studio with us. How you doing tonight, Joe?
I'm good, thank you.
So welcome to the show. I know some people have questions. We're not going to have them call in tonight. You guys can write in if you have questions. If they're not stupid, we'll answer them. So if you have stupid questions, don't waste my time or the Colonel's time. He has stuff to get done. But thank you for coming in tonight. How long have you been on the Sheriff's Department?
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here. I've been on the Sheriff's Office here in Putnam County for about 12 years, but I'm in my 19th year of law enforcement.
Holy crap, that's a long time. You're going to be retiring next year?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to probably try to hang it out for about 8 or 9 more years.
Okay. Well, before we even start, I want to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
For you guys that don't know, Colonel Joe here Wells is one of the top sheriffs in my book in Putnam County. I mean, I love all the officers to death, but he's one of the ones that I see out on all the things, and he's worked everything from narcotics to you name it. He's done it.
Well, I appreciate that, Travis, and we always appreciate your support. You're a good supporter of us, and that means a whole lot.
Yeah, I don't think, with this sheriff's department, I haven't met any bad officers, and I know there's always bad in every business, no matter what it is, whether it's the sheriff's department or McDonald's. But luckily, I haven't seen anything like that in Putnam County. You guys seem to have a good group of officers here.
I think we do. I think we've got an amazing group of young men and women. Of course, you have to set your standards high and provide great leadership and hold them accountable to meeting those standards. But I'm proud of the work that our men and women do every day, and they amaze me.
Yeah, he was just saying up here.
Yeah, I'm not looking in the camera. I got it.
We got to have a different setup. We're still working on getting everything set up in here. As you can see, a little bit too fancy for me, but Chris, our IT guy, he keeps us in good shape, and Marie, our manager. But as you know, we put up a lot of stuff about Putnam County, and we always try to feature the sheriffs in there and stuff. And we always put up the arrest and stuff. Recently we had put up, for some reason, every time we put up a black person, and you guys know that I've got 2 kids that I've adopted are black, so there's no racism here. But it seems like we put up a guy one time, or sometimes there'll be a couple, and it's not all black people, but there's a couple of them, the same ones every time, that make everything about racism and cops, whether it's Black Lives Matters groups or different people. But I just wanted to ask you one question. Have you ever heard of an officer walk into this department or anything and say, you know what, I think I'll go kill a black person today, or I think I'll just arrest black people?
Oh, Travis, of course not. The worst day in the life of any law enforcement officer is the day they have to use that type of force on anybody. It's certainly an unacceptable practice in law enforcement to judge people by their race or their religion or anything else. And while we all have things that we can learn, and we can all make improvements on learning how to accept people of all differences, and how to be sympathetic to their different life experiences. I certainly don't see any law enforcement officer that ever wants to be viewed as racist or engage in any type of use of force against anybody, dependent, no matter what their race is.
Yeah. I believe that because I've been out on, even when Chad was arresting a guy in Crescent City, and the guy attacked him. And it just so happened it was a black guy, and he was trying to steal his car. He had, the way the guy was acting, and I was near there at the time, in my book, he had every legal right to shoot the guy, but he chose not to. I don't even think he tasered him, but he did get him under control with the help of one of the Crescent City officers, and they got him back. So I just wanted people to know that there are situations where you can shoot and you don't.
Right. We spend a lot of time and effort with our young men and women and make sure that they understand all the other tools that are at their disposal before they make that decision. But ultimately, that's their decision. And the officer has to make that call when he or she feels that it's the only option left to save their life or the life of someone else. I fortunately, in almost 20 years, have never had to make that decision, and I pray that I never do. And I hope that none of the deputies that work with me ever have to. Of course, many of them have already had to make that decision. But it takes a tremendous amount of toll on the officer and his family, and certainly on the families of the suspect when that does happen. So it's a horrible thing, and we pray every day that it doesn't happen.
Now, I know you guys see, because I'm out at, you've seen me out a lot of the wrecks. I mean, when we had Brandy that drowned in the river and stuff, right. You see me all over the place with you guys. I never try to overstep my boundaries. But I see a lot of the officers, and I've seen them break down. If there's kids and stuff, I've seen a few officers just break down and lose it and start crying and stuff. I remember there was a black kid on 309, and one of the officers was just, he had to walk away from it and come back. There was a gentleman that got killed, and the kid was wrapped up in the metal. Luckily, the kid didn't die, but I've seen him, along with quite a few other officers that you could see their eyes welling up and they're trying to hold it together. Do they have some type of support program for the officers when that happens and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. In several different forms, but it's important for everybody to remember that it's extremely possible, if not likely, that those officers have children of their own that age. Or other family members that remind them of the victims in these different incidences, and they may look down at a child that's been involved in a car accident and see their child looking back at them. That's just natural. So to answer your question, certainly about a year or so ago, we began a very innovative program here at the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, and we have what's called a critical incident stress management team. We contracted with a mental health professional who has put together a team of deputies and trained them to be peer counselors anytime they are involved in any traumatic incident, officer-involved shootings, deaths of children, anything that may affect them over the long term, then this team is there for their support, and it's peer support. If more than that is required, if the services of psychiatrists or whatever the case may be is required, we certainly provide that to them as well through our employee assistance program. It's also important, Travis, to remember their families. When I say their families, the officers' families. And so these programs exist for them as well, their wives, their children. And we believe that we have to take great care of these law enforcement officers because they are our most valuable resource. They are the ones that are out here making these decisions day in and day out. And if we don't make sure that they're mentally able to do that, then we've done a disservice to our citizens. So I certainly think there's always room to improve in everything. I'm not going to say we're perfect, but I think we're leaps and bounds above many other agencies on how we're taking care of the mental health of our deputies. One of the things you might remember from this most recent legislative session is they have made PTSD, a recognized diagnosis amongst first responders. It's been that way for a long time, among the military, but it is that way among first responders now, and we're seeing more and more of that. And the new legislation ensures for their treatment for those types of difficulties that they experience it.
Yeah, you mentioned the families and stuff. I have met, not very many, but a few of the wives and the kids and stuff, at different events and stuff. And one of their biggest things is that the stress on them as well. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's got to be an awful lot of stress for a spouse or a partner in a relationship with an officer, and even the kids that they don't know if their daddy's going to come home or their mom's going to come home at night. After that, that's. I'm glad you guys are doing that.
It is, and then it could be as significant as the officer has been involved in some type of incident, or just so insignificant as the stress at his or her day-to-day duties have caused them to become withdrawn from the family. That over time can cause family problems, and then that manifests into issues at work. So the mental health and mental happiness of our members, we call them our team, and then our extended family, which are their families, certainly has to be a priority. Otherwise, we have failed as an agency.
Yeah, the one thing that I do see is there seems to be a few people, and it's not all people, that are cop haters. I'm sure you've seen it. There's people that, get out there and just trash the police force, whether it be the sheriffs or local cops or whoever it is. But the thing that they don't see is that, these are family members. They're normal people that are trying to protect and serve, and they're not out there to make everybody, I heard a girl today when I told her she saw that you were going to be on, she was like, every time I get behind the cops, I get scared. And it's like, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't get scared. And she's like, you don't get scared? I'm like, no.
That may be kind of a natural reaction. I'll tell you, even now, and as long as I've been doing this, and I know every single law enforcement officer that works in this county, when I see one behind me and I'm in my personal vehicle, I always take a little glance at that speedometer and see how I'm doing. That's a normal reaction. But Travis, I think that does exist. There are some people that either don't understand the duties and the ins and outs of law enforcement, or don't wish to. But I will tell you that, especially over the last going on 2 years that I've been in this position, that is without a doubt the minority here in Putnam County. I have seen a renewed focus within our sheriff's office on community engagement, and I've seen the community responding, and we hear every day. A day doesn't go by that I don't get an email, a telephone call, or something from someone telling us a great job that our deputy did, even if it was just stopping by a child's birthday party or the case. I feel blessed to be working in Putnam County. I think the support is strong, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah, I see you guys, and I see it more now than in the past 19 years that I've lived here.
Right.
Now I don't know, if it's internet or what it is, but of course, 20 years ago we didn't have internet, but now I see more interaction with the sheriff's department. With the kids' programs, you had the produce thing that went on at the courthouse
Right.
Not long ago, where the sheriff's department was involved in passing out produce to people that needed it. What do you think needs to be done? What do you think people can do? I know the sheriff's department is trying to do their outreach programs and stuff to get the community more involved. What do you think the community can do so that there's not that big fear factor when you guys are out and about? I mean, is there anything you think they can do? Do they need to walk up and just introduce themselves?
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is an old philosophy in law enforcement that goes back to the beginning of the foundation of current or modern policing, and that is, in order to be successful, we must be part of the community, not just police the community, and that's what we're trying to do. Travis, you've seen a big change in that in the last going on 2 years in this county because of a change in leadership at the sheriff's office, I'll be honest with you, and that has become a primary focus of Sheriff DeLoach. So what the community can do is, absolutely, if you're having something as simple as a breakfast at your church or a civic group luncheon or even just a child's birthday party and you'd like for us to stop by, it's not always possible, sometimes just depending on calls for service, but let us know. Invite us. We love to be invited. We make an attempt to get everywhere that we're invited. If you see us at a convenience store or a restaurant, just pull up and say hello. Introduce your children to us. Let them sit in our patrol car and take a look at it. And please don't ever, you start forming a child's impression of law enforcement at a very young age. And one of the things that aggravates me the most, and you've probably heard it before from me, and I'm going to tell you again, is when a parent walks up with their child next to us and says, now you better behave or he's going to put you in handcuffs and lock you up. Because now you're teaching them to be afraid of us instead of come to us when they need it. So certainly you have to explain to your children that there are consequences with bad decisions, but please don't make them afraid of us. And I think it all starts with the parents. If the parents are comfortable around law enforcement and teach their children that, we'll all start to mend this issue.
Yeah, I've heard that said a number of times when I've been out at events, like at the Catfish Festival before. Watch out or have the cop arrest you. And you're right. I don't think they should say that. But I have seen some of the officers. As a matter of fact, I was in Crescent City one day, and there was a group of kids playing at a park over there by John Thomas or St. Thomas Court Apartments or whatever it was.
Right.
And they had that little park there. And the kids saw the officer there, and I happened to be there interviewing a couple kids because we were doing an article on the playgrounds and stuff. And a few of the kids took off running. And then one of the officers, and I can't remember who it was, said, "What are you running from?" He goes, "You scaring me." He goes, "Well, come here." It was only a matter of minutes before that little group of kids, and they started gathering more and more and more around. And the officer, he flipped on his lights, he flipped on the thing, he let them talk on the PA system. Suddenly, that fear factor was gone.
Right. And that's just something that has to be reinforced and reinforced, because then what in the future that child will grow into an adolescent that may be being bullied, maybe even considering harming themselves, and now they feel more free to reach out. I think that one of the biggest successes along those lines is our youth resource program, where we have deputies in every high school and middle school, and this year with the addition of some new law enforcement officers, we're going to have a much noted increased presence in the elementary schools to just have that interaction day in and day out with these young folks, and just let them know that we're their advocate, and that we're here for them when they need something, and just to reach out, be honest, and we'll do everything we can to help.
You guys also, a lot of people don't know it, but there's also a police athletic league where you guys, I know your boxing group, and I've covered them quite a few times. Chris Gay was in it before he got his hernia, but you guys have quite a few kids that have gone on to nationals from Putnam County and win state tournaments and titles and everything else just from boxing.
Yeah, boxing is a large component of our police athletic league. We have a huge police athletic league, and that's another group of people. I talked earlier about how proud I always am of our law enforcement officers and our team at the sheriff's office. But let me tell you, what an amazing group of young people. Many of those young folks come from some of the worst imaginable home situations. We're able to get them into this police athletic league, which is designed for just that, to match children up with law enforcement officers, to build bonds, build friendships, and allow the law enforcement officers to mentor them. So the boxing is a big part of that. However, the mentoring and the other things that we do is really the focus of that. It's a faith-based organization to where we try to just provide some meaningful relationships and some good guidance for some of these young folks. Travis, every year the ones that are in our police athletic league that graduate from high school, we have a big party to celebrate the ones that have graduated from high school. They'll come up and they'll give little speeches, and they'll bring you to tears every time about how I never even thought I'd still be out of jail at this point, much less ever graduating from high school. At the last Christmas party, we had one of them who had graduated from Air Force boot camp the day before and came back in just for that Christmas party, because he said that PAL was the only family that he ever knew, and he just wanted everybody to be proud of him that he had successfully completed Air Force basic training. We have our young PAL kids become firefighters. A lot of them join the military. That's a great organization, and anybody that's interested in that certainly would just be very encouraged to contact our juvenile crime prevention office, and we'll be happy to hook you up with either boxing or any other PAL program. We have programs for young women, young men, even if they're not the athletic type. There's a place for you at the Police Athletic League here in Putnam County.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed is that when I was covering Crescent City High School and down there, that the Police Athletic League also put in all the boxing stuff down there. They had all that they got together and donated, and got a new boxing ring for them, new punching bags, and a lot of that stuff that went on down there. They do that at all the high schools, I take it.
Right. And then what happens with those, when the kids that are involved in PAL, when they get a little bit older, we then teach them to be mentors to other young kids, and it starts a generational thing. We just completed our second summer camp for the summer, which we held in conjunction with the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches out in Interlochen. And all of our older PAL kids were out there working with those young children and mentoring them. So not only do we give them some self-respect, give them a path to success in the future, but we also give them a sense of accomplishment when they're able to help other young kids. It's a phenomenal program that I didn't know a whole lot about until, the last couple of years when I moved into this position. But I have the utmost respect for all of our deputies, our executive director, Barry Stewart, who runs that program, and what a phenomenal way to hook young kids up with law enforcement officers and to build bonds that will last a lifetime.
Yeah. Now, for people that are cop haters and race baiters, I will say this, and this is not the colonel saying this, is myself. The majority of these kids are minorities. They're not all white kids there. The most of them that I've seen are Hispanic or black. There's only a couple of whites in there. And they're not just guys either. That one little girl down there at Crescent City, I can't remember her name. Is it Maria?
We do have a Maria, yes, sir.
Yeah, that little girl, I'd be scared to death if I was a young kid, to date her. I've seen her handle some guys that were, twice her size, and she's quite the boxer. She went on, I forgot what she got as far as her titles and stuff, but I know she went a long ways with it. And then when I talked to her and asked her, how's it a girl is boxing? She goes, well, anybody can box. You just got to be quick. And I said, you're not afraid of these guys? And she goes, nope.
You're right. And, boxing is just one of the methods that we have found to be successful to teach these young folks the importance of hard work, the importance of dedication, and then when they accomplish something out of it, it's sometimes the first time they've ever been successful at anything in their life. And you're right. Nothing was never designed or intended that way, but our Police Athletic League program really took off in the Crescent City area, and we have a lot of Hispanic young folks involved in that. One thing quick to mention on that, and you may want to move off of it, this is something we're pretty proud of, and I don't even know if it's been too public yet, that Putnam County has been chosen to host the statewide PAL boxing tournament next year. So we'll be the smallest county it's ever been held in. This includes PAL boxers from South Georgia, all of Florida, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and I believe part of the Virgin Islands will be coming right here to Putnam County. Several hundred youth boxers to attend. So when I asked our executive director, I was like, why bring this to Putnam? Do you think we can handle it? And he said, I do. And the reason I bring it is because many of these kids' parents have never been able to see them box in an official match because they cannot afford to leave Putnam County. I'm bringing this to Putnam County so these kids' parents can see their children win these boxing tournaments. So we have done just that. We partnered with St. John's River State College, and the tournament will be next November, a year from this November for next year, right here in Putnam County. And the Tourist Development Council has been extremely helpful to us. They have given us some funding to help fund that. We're partnering with the local hotels and restaurants, and it's going to be a great event where there will be, like I said, hundreds of youth Police Athletic League boxers coming right here to Putnam County. But most importantly, the parents of our young folks will be able to see their children box in an official match without having to worry about how to pay for traveling out of the county.
Now, if somebody wanted to donate to this, is there a place where they could go and donate to it?
Sure. Our Police Athletic League is a 501c3 organization. It's Putnam County Sheriff's Office Police Athletic League. And then all you'd have to do is just contact the Sheriff's Office main number, and I can give it to you. It's at 326-329-0800, and ask for juvenile crime prevention. And then when you get in touch with someone there, tell them you'd like to either help or be involved in or help with this tournament or any other thing for the young folks. We have a lot of very responsive business partners here in Putnam County. Walmart comes to mind. The Palaca Walmart is a huge supporter of our PAL program. TJ Smith at Beef O'Brady's is a huge supporter, and just on and on I can name those. And then along with, of course, the Sheriff's Office itself, we fund the majority of that program. So I'm proud to be involved in it, and it brings a smile to my face every time I get around those young folks.
Yeah, and I don't want to stay on the subject for a long time, but I know a few of these kids that were in trouble. And like you said, it does change them around. One of the kids, I don't think he ever said a nice word out of his mouth when I first met him, and he was in the 9th grade or 8th grade. He was in the middle school. Then he came over to the high school and got involved in the boxing. And he was always telling me, I'm going to get a tear because I'm going to kill somebody and I'm going to have this. When I saw this kid a year and a half later, he was like, yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you. Please. And the biggest thing he said, because he was always talking about gangster rap and he's going to be a thug and all this stuff. He's going to have him a 9. He's going to pull his thing out, cap somebody. When I said, so you're still going to get a gun and kill everybody? He goes, no. And I said, what are you going to do if somebody comes up and tries to hurt you? He goes, oh, I learned to defend myself.
Right.
Somebody comes up now, I can whip them.
Yeah, Travis, that's what PALS is on for. We certainly it's beneficial to any young folk, but it's not its initial intent when it was founded years ago in New York was not for those kids that had everything, that were well behaved and were doing well in school. It was for those kids that were on the verge of giving their life up to crime. And so let's partner them up with law enforcement officers, giving them mentors, and let's get them on the right track. And that's exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, it's a great program. Thank you guys for doing that for children. Because, if you don't get them, like you said, when they're early, then you might as well forget about it.
Absolutely.
And you and I have seen that when I was in law enforcement,
And it's generational. I'm sure you've seen that. You had their daddies and then them and then their children. If you don't break the cycle somewhere.
Now, I've also seen a change in some of the parents that I've seen at some of the matches and stuff. Before where they were trashing the system and stuff. Now they're in there going, oh, my son is this, he's doing that, and I've seen it make a big difference. It's not just with the kids, but it extends out through the families.
Sure it does.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know when some of the officers, unfortunately, we do have officers that get hurt where their backs get broke or they get shot. And I remember a few years ago, the state trooper that got shot over in there, and we've had a few of the officers get hurt in car wrecks and stuff. And that's one of the saddest days in my life is when I see that an officer or a first responder is hurt. When that happens, is there a place that they can go and donate? I mean, the sheriffs obviously have a fund set up. And even when, drawing a blank, he had a stroke. He just retired.
Oh, Larry LeClaire.
Larry LeClaire.
Yes, sir.
One of the best officers I've ever met in my life. When he had his stroke, is there funds that people can donate at the sheriff's department by calling the 329-0800?
Sure. There's a separate 501c3 or not-for-profit organization that is associated with the sheriff's office, but it has its own board of directors. And the radio signal for an officer in trouble or an officer down is 1024. So that foundation was named the 1024 Foundation, and it does just that. It comes to the support of any law enforcement officer in Putnam County, be you a federal, state, or local officer that's working inside Putnam County. If you have a time of need, it could be anything from you've been injured in the line of duty to you have a critically ill family member, you've suffered the loss of a home from a fire, or anything along those lines where the board receives a request and then approves it. They can provide financial assistance for law enforcement officers, and that is the 1024 Foundation.
Yeah, and if you guys also, if you see an officer and you think he's doing something good, not bad, but you think he's doing something good, if you call into the sheriff's department, they also have things where they get recognition as well from the sheriff's department, correct?
We do. We make sure that we recognize our folks for a job well done. But, and I'll go a step further on that, Travis. If you see something and you appreciate something an officer's done, whether it's one of us, a state trooper, whatever the case is, just tell them, thank you. That means so much to them because they don't hear it very often. The citizens, from time to time, take for granted that that's their job and that's what they're there to do. And but a simple thank you to them or a simple phone call to the agency, whatever agency it is, so that we can pass that word of appreciation along. It's meaningful. And like I said earlier, not a day goes by that I don't have to do a agency-wide notification of appreciation on something that somebody's called in on one of our guys or ladies.
Yeah, the accommodations is the word I was looking for.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to get into where are we at on time? Let me go ahead. Can you stay for about another half hour?
Yeah, you just tell me when you're done.
Okay. I got to knock out some of these commercials real quick. Got to pay some bills here. We got Benny O's Well Drilling. You guys need to have this guy call. You need to call him. If your pump breaks down or you don't have pressure or your system smells like rotted, stinking egg water, if you'll call him up, he does pump repairs, well restoration, drilling in wells. And if you got an abandoned well, they put you on city water now and you've got a well that you're afraid is going to cave in or something, Call the guy up. He's the best I've ever seen. And he will get right out. He services Volusia and Putnam County. Next up, let's put up Miss Barbie. I got to get Chris over here in front of the camera. But Hair by Barbie, you guys see what a mess Chris was before, and I told you we're going to show you what he looked like afterwards. Go ahead and pop your face up there, Chris. You can use my camera. She got him all cleaned up. He doesn't look like Chewbacca anymore or Woolly Mammoth. She did a good job on it. But call Barbie up. She has a shop over in Palaca at 916 St. John's Avenue. And also, if you live in the St. Augustine area, it's at 440 CBL Drive, Unit 103. That's right across the street from Home Depot, I believe, or right near there. But you can reach her at 904-501-9542, and she only does appointments. If you just show up, you're not going to get it done. I had to wait 2 weeks, but it's worth the wait. I got my duck bill going in the back. See, it's cleaned up now. And her prices are good. Let's see. Animal. There you go. Animal Health Center. Dr. Nagy and Dr. Smith. Two of the best veterinarians around. You guys need your vets. And a lot of people don't think about it, but your pets need their teeth brushed just as much as you do. Dental x-rays. They do digital x-rays. They do spaying and neutering. One important thing is don't let your dogs or cats run wild, and don't spay them and neuter them. There's too many animals running around the county. People get them. They don't care about them. They just let them out. Next thing you know, we got animals running all over the stinking place. And I've got cats, 2 dogs, and 4 horses. And every one of them I take them up to Animal Health Center. But go there, and if you need to go out of town, don't fill up your cat's bowl and leave it for 4 or 5 days, or leave your dog outside on a chain. Make sure you go over there and have them check things out. Mr. Birds, this last one we'll do for this segment. Bird Sales. This is where I got my building from. Mr. Bird is a good Christian man. If you can't and you don't have credit, he will rent to own. If you do have credit, they can finance it out. But either way, instead of, and I'm not knocking storage places, but if you want to be close to your stuff that you're storing and you want it out your back door, they do have affordable ones. They have all different kinds, all different sizes. They have greenhouses. They have small ones. They have gazebos. All kinds of stuff there. You guys go over and see him, and he'll come out and personally put it in with his son. They are closed on Sundays, and that's in San Mateo. Okay. Next thing I want to ask you about. The whole county seems to be as confused about the Guardian program, Mr. Wells. What can you tell us about that? I know you can't tell us how many officers are going to be in the schools. That's been up for question a few times. Exactly, explain the Guardian program.
Okay. So the Guardian program is a provision of a recent statute that was provided or passed here in Florida following the Parkland High School down in Broward County. And what the law said is that effective immediately upon the governor's signature, that every public school in Florida, and by public school that also means publicly funded charter schools, must have one of 3 things present on every campus from bell to bell. One is a law enforcement officer employed by an agency that is contracted to the school board, such as our youth resource deputies that are assigned to schools from bell to bell. The second option would be a police officer employed by a police department owned by the school board, basically. Some counties have Miami-Dade's a very popular one. Jacksonville has police departments that are school board police. Or the third option, to provide an armed defender of school campuses, is a guardian. And a guardian is an individual that, as intended by the law, is a individual that is a member of the school's faculty or staff, but cannot be a primarily classroom teacher, that is trained by the sheriff, and the statute put a minimum amount of time on that, to carry a concealed firearm on campus with the limited authority to address any active shooter that comes on the campus. So that is the three options that the law gives. The law provided some funding for youth resource officers to add, but it was certainly not enough to add the thousands of youth resource officers that would have been required across the state, and also didn't take into account that there weren't that many law enforcement officers available in Florida. The number of folks graduating from law enforcement academies has decreased over the last several years, and all agencies are already facing a critical shortage. So what Sheriff DeLoach decided to do here in Putnam County is we did a combination of, we added youth resource deputies to ensure that every high school and every middle and some of the elementaries are covered by youth resource. And then we also instituted a guardian program where we took some very long tenured, highly respected members of the faculty and staff. They may be deans, they may be principals, they may be guidance counselors, anything but a classroom teacher, and we put them through an extensive amount of firearms, defensive tactics, human diversity, crisis intervention, first aid, and other types of training so that they may carry a concealed weapon on campus. I can tell you that we are ready for next school year. Every campus in Putnam County is covered. We are in accordance with the statute. I can't say the same for every county here in Florida. We recently attended the Florida Sheriff's Conference, and there are some other counties that have not been able to pull that off at this point. So we don't go into the specifics. We'll never identify the guardians. They're keeping their identity concealed as part of the advantage. But I will tell you that this guardian program, along with our additional youth resource deputies, along with some of the additional training we're doing for every member of our team, your kids here in Putnam County are as safe in our schools as they are anywhere, and I'm confident that we're ready for the beginning of the school year. Did that kind of answer your question? That's about a 100-page statute, Travis, and I kind of tried to sum up the guardian as quick as I could there.
Yeah, that answered it.
Okay.
But these officers and stuff, and the guardians, I'm not going to say officers because the guardians, nobody knows who they are, which is a good thing because that doesn't allow some idiot to come in there. And we put up a thing, how much transparency is too much.
Right.
Well, on this, I believe in transparency in any government agency except for this particular program. And I don't think that people need to know because they're going to walk in and they'll know who to shoot first. And to say it can't happen in Putnam County would be, ludicrous.
No, you're right. School violence and school shootings are not a large city or large county issue. Look at Sandy Hook. Look at some of these other smaller ones. We certainly are as susceptible to it as anywhere. I think that we are doing a great job with some early detection and some other prevention, and we have a phenomenal partnership with the school board. I couldn't ask for any better relationship with the superintendent of schools and his school safety director. So I think that gives us a step ahead. But you're right, and specifically, Travis, the statute says that their identities are confidential. One of the points of contention that came up when we were looking at this program is there were some members of the community and perhaps even the school board that wanted to use a hybrid version of the Guardian program where we hired guardians, but we hired people off the street to be employed by the school board for that to be their sole responsibility. And the sheriff put his foot down and he said no. He said, I'm not hiring people off of the street that we don't know, that don't know these children. I'm not training those people and being responsible for them and placing them in our schools. He said, I will agree to do this program, and the law says the sheriff has to consent to it, as long as these are people that are in our schools. So what you have here in Putnam County and many other counties across Florida is faculty and staff that know these children. They know their tempers, they know their quirks, they know their family history, and they know what to expect from them. And these children are as important to them as anything else. These are not off the street security guards, for to say. These are people that their lives are these children, and they're going to make the right decision when the time comes. They're going to protect the children, and they're not going to overreact. So the sheriff dug his heels in. He said, I'll take the Guardian program, but only under those conditions, and that's exactly what we have here in Putnam County. We're confident in it. I attended much of their training. I'm telling you, there was a few of them I tried to hire when I saw them shoot because there was some phenomenal shots. They all told me I couldn't afford them. But great people. I was so proud of them. I watched them out there in sweltering heat, pouring rain, running around on that range, doing their defensive tactics, And I'm excited about the program, and I'm confident that we are doing everything we can to keep your children safe.
Yeah, a lot of people had questions about who's going to pay for it, and Sheriff DeLoach stepped up to the plate. You guys were originally paying, I believe it was 30% of it, and you guys have bumped that up to 42%, I understand?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a mixed bag. For the youth resource deputies, as far as that program, we're talking about the deputy sheriffs that are in the schools. In the past, we'd had a 70-30 split with the school board. This year, it's closer to about 60-40. We increased our contribution to get more deputies into the schools. So that's where that split you're talking about comes from. As far as the Guardian program, the sheriff's office funded that at 100%. However, there was money in the legislation that allows us to apply for a reimbursement grant through the Department of Education. And we have just applied for that grant, and our cost so far are about $101,000 for that program. And if we get the reimbursement grant, it'll be great. If we don't, $101,000 is a drop in the bucket when it comes to taking care of your children. So we hope to get it back. It will be useful, but we stand behind the program even if that funding falls short.
Well, one thing that I noticed that you said in the meeting, as I watch all the school board meetings, as you know, and all the county meetings, sometimes I want to sleep, reminds me of when I was a kid in church, but lately here they've been getting pretty exciting. One of the things I noticed you said the other day at the last school board meeting, when one of the school board members was saying, well, this is funding some cars and stuff, which I understand you have to have the vehicles there. Mm-hmm. But what a lot of people don't understand as well, and I didn't myself, realize that during the summer months, these vehicles are also used to help with other programs.
Right. So, to back up, you're certainly right. School board meetings have not been a place to nap lately. They've been entertainment, to say the least. And I'm certainly hope that comes to an end sometime soon so that we can concentrate on what's important. But I'll tell you this, that one of the school board members made the comment that we were the sheriff was grabbing at every dime the school board had for school safety money. Well, the fact of the matter is that's not true. We put forward more money this year than we had in the past from the sheriff's office, but the pot of money that we're using for school resource officers, the law says that's all it could be used for. So that was the first misunderstanding. But you're exactly right. So we don't believe that the school board should have to pay 100% of the youth resource officers, because during the summertime when school's out, those officers and those vehicles and their equipment are used for other things. Now, most of it is youth related. I talked about PAL summer camps. The summer camp are wrapping up now. Other types of youth engagement, youth crime prevention programs we run, that's what those deputies focus on during the summer. But those youth resource deputies during the summer also fill in for patrol deputies, and they work the streets, they work the zones, they answer the calls, and this allows our other deputies that do that day in and day out to leave their shifts to attend training. That's where they get their annual training, and we just wrapped that up, and this summer's annual training focused on, obviously, active shooters within schools. So our deputies received an extensive amount of training on active shooter response, and also the precision immobilization technique, or PIT maneuver, as a safe way to stop vehicle pursuits. So those youth resource deputies work the road, work patrol, and allow our patrol deputies to go to training during the summer. But most everything those youth resource deputies do, whether it be during the summer, at night, during the day when school's in, is youth focused.
Right. Now, I noticed that some of the costs, when I was looking at the figures, and you had mentioned it the other day in one of the school board meetings, with the stuff that you guys have to purchase right off the bat, the price of this guarding the kids and keeping them safe and protected is going to drop, because once you have the initial outlay of your materials, whether it be cars or guns or whatever it is, that's going to drop over time with the depreciation and everything else, correct?
You're right. There's startup costs, and what I hope to see is not necessarily be able to reduce the amount of money we spend on the children. What I'm hoping is that after the startup costs are absorbed, then we can continue to fund it at the same level, but add more deputies into the program so that we can continually add more law enforcement officers into these schools. But you're right. The startup cost is significant for the first year of a law enforcement officer.
The one thing that pisses me off, there's a few people that's sitting there bashing this, but what if it happens in this county? $100,000 is nothing to protect kids. I mean, it's really not.
No.
That to me, a kid's life is worth way more than that.
Right, and that's the cost of the Guardian program. You know, it's multi-millions that go into the youth resource program as a whole that provides these deputies in these schools. But you're right. You know, if you don't mind, I'll mention one other little thing that, well, not necessarily little. I think it's pretty significant and innovative that the sheriff tried. As we have already relocated. Our West District field office has always been on the campus of Interlochen High School. So that provides for a significant law enforcement presence on that school. We have moved our Central District office to the campus of Mellon Elementary. So that's a significant presence on that school, which, by the way, is right across the street from Palaca High School, adding, incidentally, a bunch of law enforcement officers to that area. And our South District office is moving onto the campus of Browning Pierce. So now every one of our district field offices is on a school campus. So you have district commanders, detectives, stationed at those schools now. That's their office. That's where they work out of. And then that's where the deputies go for shift briefings and shift meetings. So that's without any cost to anybody, really increasing our presence on school campuses.
Right. I think you guys are doing a great job with it.
There's nothing more important. I certainly appreciate the vote of confidence, and it's just something we can't afford to get wrong.
You had a couple write in saying, I love Colonel Joe Wells. He is the man. What was the other one? There. Okay. Just drop my screen down for me, please. Oh, you got a bunch of them.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Joe. All kinds of thank yous going up. So far, I don't see any bashing, which is amazing to me.
That's all right. I take it all in stride, but I certainly appreciate those voting in or chiming in with their vote of confidence. We appreciate it.
I'm usually the one taking the bashing. I thought for sure there would be one hater, but it seems like you have a bunch of fans out there. So, where do you see this, with the sheriffs and stuff going, as far as you've been in this deal for a long time? You're talking about getting more involved with the community and stuff. Where do you see this going in 5 years? You think it's going to be the way it is now, or you guys hoping to get? I mean, what are some of the things you have coming up that you can tell us about?
Sure. I think the primary focus, and it's always it's refreshing from time to time when leadership turns over. And we've been privileged the last 2 years to be under the leadership, or going on 2 years, of a new sheriff, and but I'll tell you, his focus has been, and this is what I appreciate about him most, is one was the community engagement. We have to be in the community, and I think we talked about that enough, and you know how we feel on that. But the other position that he's taken is we have to take great care of our team members. We talked about that a little bit through our critical incident stress teams and things along those lines. But Travis, a couple years ago, our sheriff's office, as far as the law enforcement staff, those deputies in those green uniforms, in those green and white cars on the street, we were 40% understaffed. And there was a lot of things that were causing that. But our average age of our deputies was very young, and the average experience. That equates to a lower quality of service than we want to provide our citizens. So we've really changed a lot of focus inside the agency to maintaining our team members, keeping them for long periods of time without turning them over to other agencies, so that we can put a well-trained, highly versed, critically thinking law enforcement officer on the street. So those have been the two most overwhelming philosophies that have driven us over the last couple of years, is the community engagement and taking care of those who serve others, so that they'll continue to stay right here in Putnam County and serve our citizens. But there's a lot going on. There's programs that start every day. There is some stuff on the horizon, and I'll tell you, I can sit here all night and brag on this agency. So you kick me under the table or whenever you want me to stop. A couple that.
No, that's exactly what I want people to see.
Yeah, we began a new program here recently that completely changes the way we investigate domestic and sexual assault and sexual violence. And the philosophy of that program, as we call it, is begin by believing. We have retrained our investigators and our deputies how to investigate these crimes, and to understand that most often the victims of domestic and sexual violence are confused upon first contact with a law enforcement officer, and they may not remember things that we think they should, and their recollection may change throughout the investigation. This does not mean they're lying or making this crime up. This is called trauma-informed interviewing, and it is really increasing our success in bringing crimes of sexual and domestic violence to a close. Our Major Crimes Bureau, our Criminal Investigations Bureau Chief and our Major Crimes Unit Supervisor was recently invited to Chicago to talk to other law enforcement officers after being recognized for how well we had implemented this program. The other one I'll mention that you're going to start hearing a lot about pretty soon, we haven't even really done much media release on it yet, so you'll get it first, is we are moving into our ankle monitoring program, which is where prolific offenders of domestic violence, those that have injunctions or who have previously violated their injunctions that we believe are placing their victims in repeated fear, we will seek a court order, and at the expense of the sheriff, we will put a ankle monitor on them, and we'll be able to set geofences up around specific areas, and we will know if that offender reapproaches that victim or goes into other prohibited places to try to protect victims of domestic violence. So those are two crime-related initiatives that I'm extremely proud of, and I'll mention one that obviously has a crime relation nexus if we could ever prevent crime, but we just engaged in a program with the guardian ad litem's office where we are, we have, over time it's been discovered that foster children often age out of the foster program and still can't drive. So that's really setting them up for failure. An 18-year-old in today's world who can't drive after aging out of the foster program really has limited opportunities for employment or school. So we've had about 15 of our deputy sheriffs who have become guardian ad litem volunteers through the assistance of the Beck Automotive Group here in Putnam County, who have been able to secure and donate 2 vehicles. We began a program where we are teaching our deputies, teaching foster children to drive. So we're giving the foster children that opportunity to be successful when they age out of the foster program. But what better way to mend bridges and fill gaps than spending hours at a time, a deputy sheriff in a car with a foster child? So those are just a few of the programs that come to my mind, initially that I'm proud of, but there are many more. I'll tell you, I don't get much downtime with the sheriff. He's always got a new idea and somewhere new we're going next, and it doesn't give me for much downtime. But I love the challenge, and after 20 years, Travis, I got to tell you that for the first time in the last few years, I'm excited about this job, and I love it every day. Look forward to going to work.
Yeah, that's a good thing you mentioned about the ankle monitors and stuff, the ankle bracelets. I mean, what a great idea. If you can keep because we have our share, I mean, it's no big secret, we have our share of pedophiles, just like any other county,
right?
In the state or in the United States. It seems like they all come south for the winter, which we could ship them back up north, be glad by me, but
the big problems we found in domestic violence situations is when the offender repeatedly returns to the home, oftentimes the Department of Children and Family Services has no choice but to remove the child from the home, and we don't ever want that. So our goal is to keep the offender out of the home as long as he's under the court orders through the injunction not to be there, and to ensure for the victims of domestic violence that they don't become repeat victims. And that's exactly what that program is intended for. But like I said, those ankle monitors can be used on any offender as long as the court order exists to place it there.
Probably one of the biggest questions I get is, why isn't the sheriff's department doing this? We had a lady on the other night that was talking about this kid that keeps killing animals in her neighborhood. We got people that call in about the dog fighting ring. There's a couple things that people don't understand that I do from being in that field, is that one, on the dog fighting ring, they still want to know that was squashed. But the other thing that they don't see, they're sitting there crying, transparency, but they don't understand an investigation. It takes time. It's not something you're going to go arrest somebody for today, especially when there's a whole group coming in from Georgia and all over the place. You guys have to have time, in order to get your investigation, because if you release things too early, I understand that, that could be the difference between a case being won and lost and a criminal being put in jail and let go again.
Right. We want to satisfy the public's hunger for information. We think that's very important, and we obviously want to be as transparent as possible. And oftentimes the most difficult thing for us is to not release that information. But if that's going to result in a better prosecution, then that's just what we have to do from time to time. And technically, any open case is not public. Even after the arrest is made, it doesn't become public until after the state attorney's office has formally filed the case. So we have to remember that we're not the only agency involved here, that we also have to protect the state attorney's ability to prosecute the case. Yeah, it's a tough line. We draw that line every day to satisfy the need to know, because the citizens do deserve to know what's going on in their community, but also to make sure that we don't jeopardize a prosecution, which puts the offender right back out there in the long run.
Yeah, and there's also you also don't want to make sure, or you want to make sure that a person isn't wrongly accused, because I know of some instances where I've seen things come across. You see our thing. We have people write in all the time. We always ask people, don't put the names up. We only do the wrecks and stuff so that people can stay out of the areas, right. Or if there's a shooting, stay out. They don't seem to understand that we can't release any more information than that. I mean, of course, we have people on the inside, people that are there at the scenes that will, whether it be a resident or whatever, or a neighbor, they'll call him, well, this is happening, and I'm not going to put the information up there, because a lot of times I've seen where one or the other will call in on a domestic and say, well, this happened and this happened, and it turns out it was vice versa. And then the wrong person gets arrested until the investigation comes out.
Yeah, well, two thoughts here. One, especially when you talk about these wrecks and stuff, Travis, we're very slow on those, and it's a challenge in today's world of social media to get a family notified before they get notified. I don't want a family learning on Facebook or on any network news or anywhere else that their family member has been involved in a crash. So, we're working as fast as we can to notify those families. But unfortunately, in today's world, just like you say, and I know it's just because they don't understand, but people will snap a photo of a wrecked car, somebody will recognize it on social media, and then that's not how we want them to find out. But you're right. It's just a fine line on keeping everybody notified and trying to to be sensitive of everybody's needs in these cases.
Now, I know when my son and my daughter, when I took them down to DMV and had their names, or had my phone number put on their, associated with their driver's license.
Right.
Now, when somebody, because if they get hurt, I want, as soon as you guys pull out their, how does that work? You pull out their license, or you identify them, and then you're able to call me quicker? Is that something that every parent should do, or?
You're right. We encourage everyone, even adults. My wife is on mine and I'm on hers, to have that emergency contact portion of your driver's license filled out. That is a confidential record that law enforcement officers are not authorized to access unless that emergency exists. But it certainly does. And keep that information up to date. Help us get in touch with you very quickly if something has tragically occurred with one of your family members.
Now, how do they go about that? Just go down to the DMV?
Yes, they can, and there's also there's online methods of that through the Florida DMV to keep that information updated.
Okay, so there's nothing. Now, the other thing, too, with the children disappearing, you guys have a program where the kids can be fingerprinted there and have their pictures taken?
Yeah, child ID programs. We do some of that, but there are a lot of civic organizations that do that as well. At almost any large festival or event, you'll see it. I know that the Masonic lodges are very big in that. We work with them. That's always a great idea to have your child fingerprinted, and then that way, if there is an event where we need to work a missing person case, that is beneficial.
Or even if they're lost out in the woods. I mean,
Right.
There's quite here lately. It seems like it comes in pockets. You'll have kids missing. We just had one over in Dunn's Creek not long ago.
I was out. That was 4th of July night. I was out.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Thank
Right.
God that child was found safe, from what I understand.
Yes, yep, she was. It was a good ending to that case. It took a little while to locate her. We were using UAVs or drones and helicopters and everything we had, and finally we did locate her safe and sound. So, but I'll be honest with you, Travis. As time ticked by on that one, my heart was getting very, very worried. But I'm just glad it came out the way it did.
How long do you usually have when you really start to get freaked out when a child's missing?
It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the age, the terrain. But I'll tell you, in this case, we are fighting against a pretty significant time delay when we were even notified. The house was surrounded on 3 sides by bodies of water, and we were dealing with a young child. So it seemed for a while that the cards were stacked against us, and we just absolutely lucked out on that.
I know in past years they used to say, well, you need to wait 24 hours before your child is missing because the sheriff's department won't. do anything. And I've seen in other counties where that is the case. You know, they'll say, well, you need to give that child, you know, unless they're like a toddler or something. But I've noticed that you guys don't do that. As soon as you're called, you're right out on it.
And even sometimes on adults, depends on the circumstances. And I can't speak for the other counties, but I will tell you that children in Putnam County, when the parent calls to report them missing, even if they just willingly run away or have, whatever the case may be, wandered off, anybody under the age of 18 is automatically considered a missing person, investigator assigned, and entered into the system as missing. That also goes for adults that may be endangered. They are immediately considered a missing person. And by endangered, that may be adults that have diminished mental capacity, physical or health problems, maybe suicidal, whatever the case may be. So oftentimes, even adults begin an immediate investigation. There are some times where we have to do a little more investigation before we consider an adult missing, because adults do have the right to come and go as they please. But I would just encourage anyone that thinks that they may be dealing with a missing person case, adult or child, to notify us immediately. And there is absolutely no delay on a full investigation on a missing child.
Now, I had someone had written in a little bit earlier, which was something I was going to ask you, so we'll get this taken care of and then we'll wrap it up. There seems to be a lot of drugs, you know, no matter if it's Putnam County or any place else, and you and I had this conversation before we went on the air. It used to be crack and PCP, and I know meth is a problem. You know,
right.
Doesn't matter if it's here, St. John's, you know, it's just as much a problem here in the rural communities as it is in the big cities. Have you seen a drop in the meth? Because I've noticed a lot more arrests, not so much the individuals as much as the labs. I've noticed in the last, since Gator took over, that there's been a lot more arrests on meth labs.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that the sheriff's office here is a member of multiple task forces that deal with drugs, and I say that to tell you that gives us an opportunity to share information both federally, as we're on an FBI and a DEA task force, and surrounding counties through a Florida Department of Law Enforcement task force. I can tell you that we are not experiencing anything that the other counties are not. The opiates continue to be a problem. That seems to be, after some legislation and hard work by Attorney General Pam Bondi, we seem to be starting to get a grip on those as doctors are held accountable and so forth. What we have seen, the most major change we've seen in the drug world, at least here in Putnam County over the last year or so, is a decrease in meth labs, but that's not all good news. That's because we're seeing an increase in imported methamphetamine out of Mexico. Crystal meth, or ice, is on the rise here. Stay tuned for probably the next few weeks, and I'll have some significant news for you on the ice issue here in Putnam County. We fight the drugs every day, and people always ask, why do you wage the drug war? It's a waste of money. But that's not always the case. You know, the drug war, or the drugs, are directly tied with property crimes. We've seen a significant reduction in our property crimes in Putnam County over the last few years. Crime in Putnam County, property included, is at the lowest that it's been in years. We had the second largest crime reduction in the state of Florida this past year, behind only Suwannee County. Putnam County is now safer than the state of Florida as a whole, and have a lower crime rate than several of our contiguous counties. So we're seeing the crime fall at a rate faster than it's falling in the rest of the state. And I'm convinced, and people may argue, that that is partly due to our war on drugs here in Putnam County, because drugs are directly tied to auto theft, burglary, theft, fraud, you name it. So I guess, to answer your question, I see us making an impact. Have we eradicated it? Absolutely not. Will we ever? I don't know. I've been some shape, form, or fashion working drugs for 20 years. I can tell you that it's nothing like it was when I was working undercover drugs in the crack cocaine days, when we were having the street wars over turf and gangs over crack cocaine. But it's a problem that persists. It's a problem that won't be won only through law enforcement. It has to be won through prevention as well. But it is a problem that we're addressing.
Now, somebody wrote in and asked, do we have gangs in Putnam County, and how bad are they?
It's a great question. We have our Drug and Vice Unit monitors this situation closely. Based on the criteria used through the fusion centers and so forth to measure gangs, we have nothing that is recognized as an organized gang. What we will see from time to time is some small, short-lived groups of juveniles that want to identify as a gang and commit a series of property crimes. We have individual members here in Putnam County that are registered as gang members. That may have been a registration that occurred during a previous prison sentence or whatever the case. But we have no known operating organization that meets the criteria of an organized crime gang in Putnam County.
Yeah, because they said that they knew that there had been some MS-13 gangs in Orlando or members, and in Jacksonville and a couple other counties that they mentioned, of course, Miami. And
the one thing about the gangs is we certainly are not saying we're immune to them, and we do monitor that, because especially as we're notified by the state of Florida anytime anybody's released from prison that will be residing in Putnam County. If they are flagged by a gang member, that is obviously something we have to pay close attention to, because we don't want that to pipe up. Luckily, gang members like to kind of get lost in the shuffle and sometimes tend to migrate toward the larger counties. But we certainly don't want to let our guard down and see that happen, because I do know, and I can tell you, that there are people residing in Putnam County that somewhere have been identified as gang members and entered into the National Crime Information Center as a known gang member. But that membership began in another county, and they have just moved here. But we haven't seen any good organization of them, thank God.
Somebody wrote in that in Clay County, the sheriff there has meet and greets at the donut shops, and they wanted to know if you guys were planning on having any meet and greets where people could actually come out and meet with you guys and meet the deputies or the sheriff, and where they would be at, when they would be at.
Okay.
And
I can tell you that Sheriff Daniels is very innovative up there in Clay County, and I think he's doing a great job. He's been a big breath of fresh air to Clay County, and I like watching some of the things that he's up to. The best thing that I can tell the citizens is that while we have not done any one particular program like a meet and greet or coffee with the cops or donuts with the cops, but we are always out there at some event or another. So my best recommendation is to like and follow us on Facebook, Putnam County Sheriff's Office on Facebook. We announce everywhere that we're going to be, and other public appearances, especially coming up for fall, and we're rolling into Halloween and some of those types of things. We will have lots of events that we'll be hosting and be at, Night Out Against Crime and so forth. So I guess the best recommendation is follow us on social media. We'll let you know where we are, and come see us.
yeah, I know we do a haunted house every year. We don't charge the community anything for it. We have 20 to 40,000 people go through it in a 2-week period.
Right.
And I've noticed some of the officers will stop by, and luckily, we've never had any incidents, no fighting or anything else, but we have some pretty big guys from Putnam County that volunteer, and even a few of the sheriff's deputies come out and walk around and stuff. But I've noticed in the past couple of years that when they come in there, the kids are running up to them, and the two officers, and I can't remember their names, 2 years ago, walked in with big Halloween lanterns, had them full of candy, and was passing out candy to the kids and stuff. So hopefully they'll show up this year again. And
you see, Travis, that's something I wasn't even aware of. That is something that was not specifically assigned to those deputies. It's just, I think that they're starting to believe in that philosophy to just take advantage of every opportunity to get out there in the community, because we can't do this without the community. And if we sit in those green and white cars with our windows up, riding around during the day, when we're not on calls for service and we have some spare time, we're missing an opportunity. So the focus is, while you're riding around, if you're not on a call, and many times they're call to call all day long, and I understand that. But when they're not, and you happen to roll across some kids in a park, or a child's birthday party, or some senior citizens having a cookout, get out with them for a few minutes and talk to them. And little by little, that peels back the layers of uncooperation between the citizens and law enforcement. And it's not going to change anything overnight, but it's working.
Well, I will tell the people this, that, we have a bunch of listeners and readers on the Putnam Way and stuff. I have busted these cops a couple of times doing things that probably you guys would rag on them for doing it on the clock. One was Kenny Roberts. I know you know Kenny.
I do. He's one of our patrol supervisors, Sergeant Roberts, yes.
Yeah, he was out delivering stuff to a homeless guy on Thanksgiving Day, and he was tromping through the woods, and he happened to be off that day. And I'm like, what are you doing out here? You know, you stalking me or whatever? Because we're out in the woods in the middle of nowhere out in Boswick. And I just happened to run into him in the woods, and he was taking a guy that lived in a trailer out there that was pretty much a homeless man, a huge plate of food and stuff.
Yeah, and I would not have known about that. Sergeant Roberts has a heart of gold, and he doesn't. He never said anything until I think I learned of that from you, actually, Travis. And and I learned later that Sergeant Roberts actually had come across this young man, and he had noticed, or this man. He's not a young man. He had noticed this man riding his bike for long distances every day. So he ended up somehow or another, and I don't recall the whole story, but he figured out that he had a vehicle, but it was at home, and he didn't have the money to repair it. So he was having to ride into town to get little bits of food or whatever the case is. Well, outside of law enforcement, Sergeant Roberts is a pretty accomplished mechanic. So he actually ended up doing some work and getting this guy's vehicle up and running, and then they ended up just kind of staying connected for a period of time. And I found out through you that he had continued to deliver food that way. But I hope that's the kind of thing that's going on all the time that I don't know. And I will tell you that absolutely, that's the kind of stuff that I don't care if they do on the clock. That's what it's all about, brother.
Yeah, and then Chad Hallman, one of my biggest articles was, and they had in an hour's time over 500,000 people, and I think I showed you the thing that I had on my phone where it showed it was like 580,000 people had written in about was Chad Hallman and the other Wells. Michael Wells.
Yes.
They were out there. I busted them out there in the pouring down rain. There was a guy up by there's an elderly gentleman up by the weight station in East Palaca or San Mateo there. And they were out there in the pouring down rain changing this guy's tire. If they would have waited another 30, 45 minutes, as Florida, it would have quit. But no umbrellas, no nothing. And I'm trying to jump out there with an umbrella, and they're like, no, we got it. We don't want you to get hit, But I thought that was pretty cool that people, that's the side that I want them to see of you guys, that it's not running around trying to get bust thugs or whatever, but when they had downtime, they could have been sitting at Burger King or sitting on the side streets instead of helping an elderly gentleman out. But I know you've got to get going. I want to thank you so much for your service and for coming in. And you're still one of my favorite officers.
Well, thank you.
Colonels now.
I appreciate that. And listen, I've really enjoyed it. So anytime, let me know, and we'll think of some new and good things to talk about. But we appreciate your support and all that you do to recognize our deputies for their actions.
Well, you guys have a lot of people that do back you. There's only one or two haters, and they're going to hate anything that happens out there.
We'll pray for them, and maybe one day they'll come along.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
And okay, well, thank you, Colonel Joe. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
You have a good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for coming in. That was Colonel Joe Wells. You guys, what he was saying about your children and stuff is a great point. Don't tell your kids we're going to have the cops arrest you, and stuff like that. All you're doing is scaring the daylights out of your children. And when they see a cop, the point he made should be taken well, is that your child shouldn't be afraid of the police. The police are there to help them out. Don't make them terrified of law enforcement, because when they do need them, they're going to run. And I know a lot of people, they just take off and start running. When they see an officer, a lot of kids that, probably wouldn't take off running because they haven't done anything wrong. It's just been laid into their mind that, hey, there's a cop, run, get out of here, be afraid. And don't have your children do that. But I want to thank Colonel Wells for coming in and sharing some of the, the police stuff with us. Okay, I've got to go to commercial break here. Knocking stuff all the way over the place. I guess he made me nervous too. And he wasn't even behind me. Okay, Eastside Towing and Collision. Mr. Bob, I was up there today. He was working on my truck. The guy is kick butt at what he does. Not only do they do collision work and stuff, but he also does some mechanical stuff. But he's doing a van up there now, and it cost him a little extra, but he had some problems that he found today on it, and he was like, man, I'm going to lose quite a few $100s, but I can't let this thing go out like this. So went ahead and did the extra work and took a bath on what he was doing. But if you guys have, he does accept insurance. So if you find yourself in a fender bender, get over there, go in and talk to him. You can also have him, and a lot of people don't know that when you're in a car wreck, you can call him and have him pick up your vehicle. From what I understand, you can have anybody pick up your vehicle, but have it towed over to Eastside Towing or Collision and Towing. It's right there in East Palaca, right but near the fairgrounds, and have him do the work on your vehicle. He does all my body work on my vehicles, and God knows with 4 horses and stuff, kind of clutch too. I backed in and hit the side of my truck on the gate one day because I wasn't paying attention, and now I've got to get that over there and have Bob do it. But if you look at the pictures and his paint jobs and stuff that he does, unbelievable. And you're going to get what you pay for. If you go to a $99 place, you're going to get a stinking $99 paint job. But there are different paints that Bob uses that he can make your car look as good as a, $10,000 or $15,000 paint job for cheaper. Okay, who do we got coming up next? Speaking of getting your car worked on, cars, Community Auto Repair Specialist. Now, Community Auto Repair Specialist, I've had quite a few people call in and say they can't find it. Everybody in Putnam County knows where the Taco Bell is at. If you're on the side of Taco Bell, you want to head toward Highway 19, head toward Walmart. It'll be on the right side. It looks like a red barn there. You see the picture there? It says Auto Barn. They are in, you'll see the sign out front that says Cars. Then it says Auto Barn. It's 2 businesses there, Car Lot and Cars. But they do car repairs if you guys need something done to your motor. They do front end alignments. Matter of fact, we're doing a giveaway right now for a front end alignment, a oil change, tire rotation, and they'll inspect the car. If you guys go on IITW Radio.com, you can sign up for it there. You can sign up for it on our YouTube channel, as well as on Facebook at The Putnam Way. You can only enter on each one of those sites one time, but if you enter in one time on each, it gives you 4 chances of winning. So you can enter on all 4 sites, and that should be up and posted right now. They're open Monday through Friday, and it just disappeared on me. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They are closed Saturday and Sunday. They have a new child. They have They have a business on Krill Avenue in Palaca, one on Idlewild Avenue in Green Cove Springs, and then Advanced Auto Care on Archer Road in Gainesville. So make sure you go over. And on their tires, they only charge that you pay this. You pay just for the tire. They don't do any markup on it, and all they are going to charge you for is the mount and balance and stuff. So if you need tires, that's a good place to go get them cheap. And they're good tires. O'Reilly's Auto Parts. I was just there today. Had to go get a timing chain for the truck and a few other parts, and it actually wound up being cheap. I mean, real cheap. I was surprised at how cheap it was. It was less than $50 for a timing chain, the gears, the sprockets, the goop that goes around the inside of it, and all that. It was less than $50. They did beat their competitor's price. I told them that. Okay, got it cheaper at another auto parts place. They looked it up and said, yep. They marked it down past that. Not only did they match it, they marked it below that. But I got to give a shout out to Tracy over at O'Reilly's. That's Carl Green's, Tiny Green's daughter. What a sweetheart she is. She already had the parts. I called there. I said, I'm coming in. She already had the parts sitting at the counter for me, so there was no wait for me at all. I was in there and out in just a couple of minutes. So if you give them a call and tell them you're coming in, they'll pull your parts. They'll have them on your counter. And JR, if you guys check this guy's motorcycles out and his cars, unfreaking believable. Okay, the last one we have for the night is Satsuma Produce, The Stand, Matt and Luann. I just saw the trucks up there today, guys. They and gals. They got a whole bunch at East Palatka and in Satsuma, all fresh produce. They had a huge van and a huge trailer up there unloading all kinds of stuff. So the stuff just came in today. They have the best tasting tomatoes I've ever eaten, and I'm not sure where they're getting theirs out of, but they have South Carolina peaches, which to me taste better than the Georgia peaches. I saw those. They have the corn in. They have those, what's those little sea urchin looking things, Chris? Rambutans. They look like a sea urchin, but they taste like heaven. You guys go in there and check them out, and they're open. That was from 9 to 7 every day, I believe. Yeah, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. And go in there and see Andrea or William or ask for Matt and Luann. They're usually running around getting produce and going all over the state trying to find the freshest produce they can. Okay, we got some crazy stories, guys. Gals. Let's see, which one do I want to do first? Let's do, you guys pull the, let's get the bear in the jacuzzi.
Okay.
You know it is stinking hot outside when you go out and there is a bear in a jacuzzi. Not only a bear in a jacuzzi, but a bear drinking a stinking margarita out there getting sloshed and cooled off at the same time. We got video on this, right? Yeah, go ahead and pull the video up, Chris. It looks like he's having a good old time. Oh, let me wash my ears out there.
Yeah, they said he walked up and saw them. He walked right up to the margarita, knocked it over, drank it, and then he started sloshing around in the jacuzzi, the hot tub, and they found him about an hour later up in a tree taking a nap.
I guess so. He's a drunk bear.
He's tag.
Yeah, he's got a tag on his ear too. That's pretty cool. I've never seen a bear get drunk on a margarita before, but I guess that's what it looks like right there. I think I'll go join the bear. I like margaritas. I just can't drink them. Let's put the one up about the... there's so many good ones. Oh, let's put the one up about the car challenge. Young kids are freaking out lately. You got a rapper, Shaggy, or he's a comedian, and he was behind a challenge, but he's warning kids against jumping out of cars. You know, kids are doing some crazy, stinking stuff they're snorting condoms, you know, all kinds of stuff. But then they're jumping out of cars, and I used to do this game with my daughter when we were younger, when I was younger and they were younger. I'd pull up at a light. If there was nobody coming, we would jump out and their music playing. Her and I would jump out, you know, the car, and we would sit there and dance.
Yeah, but you had the car stopped. A young lady in Iowa, she jumped out of a moving vehicle and actually fractured her skull. That's why they're warning against it. People are taking it to extremes.
So you kids, if you're driving around in your cars, don't jump out while they're moving. Go ahead and pop that video up.
Drake takes the In My Feelings challenge to the next level in a new music video recorded overnight for the hit song. He pokes fun at Shiggy, the comedian behind the viral dance craze. And now Shiggy is addressing the popular sensation. Shiggy, who was born Shaquille Mitchell, posted a video of himself dancing to the In My Feelings song in June. Millions of people have tweeted about that very challenge.
But as we showed you last week, some dancers are taking the challenge to dangerous extremes. Government safety experts warn dancers not to jump out of moving cars to participate. An Iowa teenager was in intensive care after fracturing her skull during a failed attempt. Shiggy tells CBS News he never expected people to get hurt in his challenge.
Do the Shiggy challenge.
Yeah, I said Shaggy. Shiggy. This next one is pretty nuts. He had a couple of guys on a train, and they were going to hop off. And do we have video on that one, or is it just a picture? Anyways, they're going down the tracks, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Decided they couldn't jump off, so they decided to call 911 to stop the train. That's nuts. Let's see, which one do I want to get here, because we're running out of time here. Where's the one about the kid that broke into the house, a 17-year-old?
Oh, that's one of my favorites. The Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he breaks into the house, and you know. Oh.
No, he broke into the house. The couple was sleeping and woke them up and wanted to know their Wi-Fi password.
Yeah, I didn't know if we had a video or a picture up. Okay. Anyways, how stupid do you have to be at 17? That's pretty stupid. I don't know if the kid was on drugs or whatever, but he breaks into this house, and while he's in the process of robbing it, he wakes the couple up and says, "Hey, I need your Wi-Fi password."
Yeah, before the cops got there, though, one of the owners actually had him out of the house. He had removed him from the house.
Do we have a video on the police dog at
Yes, we
demonstrating CPR? Now, this is pretty cool. You would think it would be kind of funny, but it's actually a pretty good idea, and it would work great for shut-ins and people with, heart conditions like myself. I need to teach Cracker how to do CPR on me. But they have a police dog that is demonstrating, and they've taught him to listen for the pulse. Now, how that works, I'm not sure, but go ahead and pop that video up there. Okay. Oh, man, we're quickly approaching out of time here. We got a bunch of stuff. I'm probably going to have to go.
My only concern with a dog with a CPR is, one, how does he know what the pulse sounds like? And two, he doesn't do mouth to mouth. That would be a little hard to put his mouth and snout over the person.
Mouth to mouth is only needed for drowning now.
Right, but again, how does the dog know what the pulse sounds like? I'm all for it. It's just...
Oh, it's probably like when people have seizures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs can pick up on stuff. Yeah, and they censor it. We have a catfish that was kicked out of a pond for eating ducks. Now, that's a crazy story because, first of all, how does a catfish eat a duck? But it's a catfish who lives in Germany, and he was eating all the other fish in the pond. Then once he finished with that, he moved on to ducklings.
They actually put a contract out for him.
He was 4'9" and it's been making waves near in Franklin. The city's put out a contract on the fish. It was first seen about a year ago, but the contract hasn't been signed or it hasn't been fulfilled yet.
Yeah, they put out a contract for a professional angler to come find him, but nobody seems to be able to catch him.
And they have him captured on, what did it say? Plans are to capture him alive and take to a pond that he can't escape from. Huh. Okay, let's get this one last one up here, one or two more. That recently in the news, you had a man, I don't know how many of you guys have ever seen him. He's 82 years old, and I cannot pronounce his name. I'm not even going to try. Maybe you can. He's out of India. And he started growing his fingernails when he was 14 years old. The longest nail that he has is 6.5 freaking feet long. Look at it. It looks like a bunch of nasty snakes.
Yeah, he finally cut him off. He was in Ripley's, believe it or not. He finally cut it off because he got tired of people calling him gross.
Yeah, gross. How do you wipe your butt with fingernails that long?
I don't know. He's been growing them since he was 14. He's 66 years old, though, not 80s.
Yeah, well, he used to have both hands because back a few years ago, I saw him and both hands were like that. Mm-hmm. But how in the hell do you walk around like that? I mean, that's got to be uncomfortable when your hands have got to hurt like crazy.
Yeah.
But going to the bathroom, I mean, the guy must have a bidet because that's just nuts.
Hey, do we got time for one more story? My favorite one, the Genius of the Week.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you do that one.
This gentleman was caught behind the wheel. He kept stopping, and the cops pulled him for allegedly drinking and driving. But when he was asked, that the cops told him that they asked him what the Jim Beam bottle was doing in the front seat, and he says, "Well, I wasn't actually drinking and driving. I was only sipping in at stop signs and lights." So, needless to say, he did get arrested, and he has a bond.
Yeah, he drinks at lights and stuff. Well, guys, we're coming to the close of our show here. I want to thank you for letting me come into your hearts and your homes and warp your minds a little bit. I want to thank the staff for the great job that they do, and I also want to thank Colonel Joe Wells for coming in tonight. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday.
We will be back till Monday. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7:30 to 9.
You guys have a great weekend. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department and all first responders. You guys remember to keep your veterans in your prayers and respect all veterans. Respect your first responders, EMS and stuff. Today is the 228th.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It's the 228th birthday of the U.S. Coast Guard. Make sure if you know anybody in the Coast Guard to thank them for their service. They started on August 4th in 1790. Thank you guys for your service. We got to get out of here. I'll see you Monday evening at 7:30. God willing, the creek don't rise and the government don't get me first.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button too on your YouTube and on Facebook. And this is Tyler Riffley.
Sunset, lights come on. Bleachers packed, worries gone. It's the real deal. That feeling inside when you walk out on that field. You got the heart of a champion. Don't you know you can do anything? We're all here, we won't let you fall. Get ready, set, go. As he throws